Life is short, and on average, our time on Earth is limited to around 80 years. And for the first 20 years, you're probably going to be on a path that someone else set for you, going to school, then college, and then maybe working at your first job. And during your last 20 years, you're likely going to retire and you probably won't do anything too adventurous, start a new business, or travel to exotic countries as a senior citizen. And this just goes to show that even though you think you may have 80 years to live, in reality, your best years are probably limited to just 40. 40 years isn't really a lot of time. So if you don't have a plan to live your best life, then your best years are going to slip away from you and you're going to be left with regrets. Now, I don't want to depress you. I just want you to realize that life is shorter than you might think. Now look back at how many days have already passed and how much you have left to live your fullest potential. In this video, I want to share my thoughts about how we should be using our time to maximize life and why you need to start thinking about how to spend it wisely. Because if you don't, life is just going to slip through your fingers and you're going to look back and wonder where all your time went. Now, the first thing that you need to do to live your best life is to do some self-reflection and determine what success means to you. Because when you're growing up, someone else, probably your parents, is going to tell you that in order to live a successful and happy life, you need to hit certain criteria. And you're probably told that you need to get good grades, go to good college, get a good job, have a family, and then buy a home. But that lifestyle might not be what you want for yourself. And in fact, when I was growing up, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I became an engineer out of college, not because I was passionate about engineering and creating things, but because I was decent at math and science and I wanted to make some money after I graduated. But if engineering didn't pay, I wouldn't have any interest in the subject. Now, some people might say, okay, I want to be a hustler. I want to be an entrepreneur and I want to make billions of dollars from my startup. And to achieve my ambition, I'm going to grind 24 hours a day to get there. But again, I challenge you, do you actually want that? Because it's definitely possible, but the trade-off is that you're going to lose many of your relationships that way. Now, there's a reason why many billionaires and celebrities often go through multiple divorces. High ambition and success usually doesn't work well, and you also need to care for someone else. So think about what success really looks like to you, and really think about what actually makes you happy. To live a life true to yourself without any major regrets, you have to dig deep and define what success means to you. So for me, success meant not needing to work at a full-time job. Now, I enjoy working, but I didn't like the idea of being forced to work just to survive, where if I didn't work, I'd lose everything. I wanted the option to do what I want when I want. But I wasn't always like this. When I was growing up, the goal was to climb the corporate ladder and become a manager, because everyone knew that managers make the most amount of money without needing to do any work. But after talking to a lot of my older coworkers, I learned the truth about working at a corporation, where the people who get promoted weren't necessarily the best at the job, but they're probably the ones who are best at kissing butt. Now, while working, I also realized that I was wasting the best hours of my day sitting at my desk. I was spending more time at work with the people that I didn't really care about than my friends, my family, and people who I loved. And if I stayed on this path, then I wouldn't be able to just travel spontaneously whenever I wanted to, or go to the mall on a random Tuesday afternoon. I'd also miss many of my kids' events, just like my mom did because she was too busy with her work. Now, this seemed like a bad trade-off to me in my mind, so I did everything that I could do to be job-free. And after 7 years of working and enacting my plan, I was finally able to leave my 9-to-5 job as an engineer. Now you might be asking, Sean, what did you do to get there? Now, I knew that if my passive income exceeded my expenses, then I could leave my full-time job. So with that clearly defined goal, I was able to work backwards and then find a way to get there and achieve success on my own terms. There are many ways to get this kind of passive income, but my way was through owning cash flowing rental properties. And once I had enough, I was able to leave my full-time job without any guilt, knowing that I could support myself and my family through my rentals. Now, my definition of success may not be the same as yours, and that's okay. But if you can define what success means to you, then you can work backwards, figure out what you want to do, and achieve your goals based on your own desires, not external pressures that might make you feel resentful in the future. So think about it. What does success look like to you? Now, once you have a clear picture of that goal, you'll be well on your way to living an amazing life. But success isn't the only thing that'll make you happy. Now, the next point I'm going to make is arguably the most important thing that you need to live a fulfilling life, and that's building meaningful relationships. Now, there's a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, where the author interviewed people who are on their deathbeds and asked them, what were your biggest regrets? Very few people said they wished they worked more or that they made more money. But many people said that they wished they spent more time with their friends and their family, especially those who had already passed away. Now, this hit me pretty hard because I realized that I was spending too much time trying to build my wealth and I wasn't prioritizing my relationships. I felt like I was taking my friends and family for granted and assumed that they would always be there. But in reality, if you don't make an effort to stay in touch with people, your bond will slowly dissolve. And another sad thing is, the time that you have left with your family is incredibly limited. Think about this. When you were growing up, you spent every single day with your parents. But after you graduate from college and live on your own, the time you spend with your parents actually becomes very short, unless you live with them. So unless you make a conscious effort to visit your parents, you might only see them on special occasions or during the holidays, which adds up to maybe a few days from the whole year. Which means that in reality, you only have a few months worth of time before they pass away, which is really crazy to think about. So for me, building my relationships with my friends is one of the most enjoyable things in my life. And even though I got to spend most of my year abroad and even got to go to the Olympics, one of the happiest moments of my past year was just being able to go back to Los Angeles and spend a week hanging out with my college friends. We were able to reminisce about the old times and get updated on each other's lives. If you want to live a happy and fulfilled life, then you need to prioritize meaningful relationships and go out of your way to spend quality time with your friends and family. Now, you also want to be intentional about who you spend your time with, and don't just make friendships for clout. I know some people who try to climb the social ladder by forming friendships with people that they don't really vibe with and are only friends with certain people just because they want to get ahead. But I encourage you to find people who genuinely like you for who you are and not just for what you might get out of the relationship. Trust me, it's much more fulfilling to have real, genuine connections than to force friendships just for networking purposes. Now, even though building relationships is very important, the next thing you need to do to live a fulfilling life will make you feel like you lived a life worth living. And that's embracing lifelong learning. If you're not progressing, then you're regressing. And I believe that if you're not busy learning and growing, then you're slowly dying. And I don't mean just like formal education, I'm talking about learning in every area of life. Now, this is one reason why people who retire early just to sit on the couch and watch TV all day tend to die earlier than those who work longer or have hobbies that they enjoy outside of work and continue with those hobbies after they retire. So think about it. Have you ever noticed how much more energized you feel when you're learning something new? When my wife and I left our full-time jobs, it was really cool that we still had our social media business to run and learn from. We're constantly learning new strategies to make our business grow. And since there's so many aspects to running an online business, it keeps us active and constantly on our toes. So we're always evolving and thinking ahead. And this past year, we also went to Taiwan and Japan for a few months and took part in their language immersion programs to learn Chinese and Japanese. Now, learning something new is extremely hard, especially if you've been out of school for a while. But the act of learning something new makes life refreshing, and it gives you a whole new goal set for you to work with. Learning new languages is also particularly interesting because it opens up a whole new world for you. Like when I was learning Chinese, I could suddenly start reading the menu at restaurants, and I finally knew how to order more interesting dishes. And in Japan, Sharon was finally able to communicate with her host father because she was able to make these simple sentences. Learning also makes you feel younger again. It shows you that there's so much out there that you'll never fully learn or know. And this is very exciting. And the best part is, there's no limit to how much you can grow, as long as you embrace the mindset of constantly improving and learning. It also makes life really interesting. And when you're constantly learning, life never gets boring. So imagine being 70 years old and learning how to do ballroom dancing, or picking up painting as a hobby at 80. These things will keep you energized and keep you interesting, rather than someone who just sits down, watches TV all day, and lets their brain rot. So ask yourself, what's the next thing that you want to learn? Life is short. And I know that I talk about financial freedom and real estate investing a lot on my channel, but I also want to remind you all that the only reason why we do any of these things is that we can live a life that's true to ourselves. Now, if you follow the points I mentioned in this video, you're going to live a very happy life. And if you feel inspired by this video to take charge of your life, you definitely want to check out this video where I show you the secret that lets you never have to work ever again. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next time. Take care.